Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. 2 weeks ago today, I made a video on this channel discussing how there were rumors swirling about that Warner Bros. Discovery was looking to split itself into two separate companies, and what do you know it, but today, June 9th, 2025, Warner Bros. Discovery announced that they will be doing exactly that. If you guys haven't heard the news yet, Warner Bros. Discovery announced that they were going to be separating their streaming and studios divisions from its linear television business, forming two separate companies. This split is expected to happen by mid-2026, and it's supposed to quote-unquote help to maximize the potential of its portfolio of brands. Let's break this all down. So what they're doing here is essentially Warner Brothers TV, Warner Brothers Motion Pictures Group, DC Studios, HBO, and HBO Max, currently known as Max of course, is going to fall under a brand new company that is currently unnamed but is going to be their streaming and studios company. Then they are going to have a separate company that they are describing as their global networks that essentially will be the home for their brands like CNN, TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network, Boomerang. Basically all of their linear cable networks that they own will fall under this second brand. This is exactly what was rumored to happen, exactly what we discussed 2 weeks ago. The funny thing about this to me, just first and foremost, and we'll get into the comments we have from David Zaslav and how this will impact just the brand as a whole and what they're trying to accomplish here by doing something like this. What I find fascinating is they announced this today, right? Clearly this is something that they've been planning for a while now. Clearly this is something that has been going on behind the scenes, yet they don't have a name for these two separate companies. It just shows me how Warner Brothers Discovery, and it does just scream this in my opinion, they really don't know what they're doing and don't have a solid plan, because they're announcing that they're splitting off into two separate companies, right? What is the name of these companies? That's the first question people are going to have. The two questions everyone's going to want to know immediately is, or three questions is, what are these companies going to be about? Which we know the split's going to be, their streaming and studios company and then a global television network company. The second question is going to be, when is this happening? Okay, mid-2026. And the third question is going to be, what's the name of these companies? And that's something that we do not know. Warner Brothers Discovery says they have not yet determined a name for these companies, which again is just mind-boggling to me, how you have an announcement like this where you're splitting your brand in half and yet you don't have a name for these brands. But nevertheless, that's neither here nor there. What we do know about these two brands is who's going to be running it. David Zaslav is going to serve as the president and CEO of the new streaming and studios company, while Gunnar Wendenfalls, probably said that wrong, will be the president and CEO of Global Networks, the other company they're spinning off. So essentially, Gunnar is going to be in charge of all the cable networks, and David Zaslav is going to oversee all of the production, programming, and streaming services. Speaking of David Zaslav, we have a quote from him. "The cultural significance of this great company and the impactful stories it has brought to life for more than a century have touched countless people all over the world. It's a treasured legacy we will proudly continue in this next chapter of our celebrated history. By operating as two distinct and optimized companies in the future, we are empowering these iconic brands with the sharper focus and strategic flexibility they need to compete most effectively in today's evolving media landscape." It's basically a nothing burger of a statement, but I discussed this 2 weeks ago. They're not just doing this for fun, right? There's a reason behind them splitting these companies in half, and in my opinion, that reason is they're looking to explore a sale or merger for the streaming and production company that they are forming here. We all know this from the start with Warner Brothers Discovery. There's been a lot of rumors and rumblings that this company is going to seek after yet another merger or acquisition to kind of save themselves from the $54 billion worth of debt that they had accumulated the day this merger happened. Comcast was interested supposedly in buying this company, but I discussed this 2 weeks ago in my other video, and if you want to hear me go in depth on all this, I'll leave a card above to that. But essentially, by splitting off this company, Warner Brothers Discovery, into two separate entities, it makes it much easier for another merger or acquisition to happen, because the different antitrust agencies can't argue that, hey, this is a monopoly, you guys own too much, because we've divested half of our assets. We've divested all of the cable companies we owned. All of the cable networks are now their own separate entity, and we no longer own that. So all you'll be getting is our production companies and our streaming service in HBO Max. That's what they're trying to accomplish here, at least in my opinion. I don't think this is to quote unquote, as David is saying here, to have a sharper focus and strategic flexibility they need to compete. Yeah, the strategic flexibility is that you're trying to get another merger or sale of this company to happen, and you think the best way for that to happen is by splitting these companies into two separate entities. The one interesting thing about this hypothesis that I was speculating on in my last video discussing this topic is how exactly will this work from a standpoint of debt, right? Currently, Warner Brothers Discovery is about $37 billion in debt still. They got it down significantly from the initial 55 or 54 billion they were in debt when this merger first happened, but that's still a lot of money they are in debt with. So how exactly are they going to do this? And that's the other reason I think this split is happening, to basically split the debt between these two companies, because I said this a few weeks ago, but if you're looking to buy Warner Brothers Discovery as it stands today, are you really going to want to take on $37 billion worth of debt? No, you're not going to. However, if you cut that in half, let's say it's $36 billion, you cut it in half to around $18 billion each, that's much more manageable for a company to come in here and say, okay, you have $18 billion worth of debt, we can recoup that within a year or two with everything we have planned for your company, right? The thing though here that we do not know is we do not know how they are dispersing this debt between the two companies. That is something that has not been reported on yet. It could be that it's a 50-50 split, that they're going to have like $18.5 billion go to the streaming service and production company, then they're going to have the other $18.5 go to, you know, the cable network company. We don't know if that's going to be the case or if one's going to get more debt than the other. That all remains to be seen. But what we do know today here is that Warner Brothers Discovery is officially announcing that they are splitting. They are going to form two separate entities, one of which is going to be for its streaming and production companies, the other of which is going to be for its linear cable networks. And this is all going to happen at some point in the middle of 2026. We'll see what the future is for just all of their brands in general, but specifically Cartoon Network after this split happens, because essentially what's going to happen is Warner Brothers Discovery is going to become a production company. Let's just give it a name for now to make it less confusing, but let's just say Warner Brothers Studios. That's going to be their own production company. They're not going to have any allegiances towards any cable networks because they are their own separate entity. So does that mean Cartoon Network, under this new linear cable company, the Warner Brothers linear cable brand, let's say, does that mean they're going to have to buy the rights to the shows that Cartoon Network Studios is producing, given that they're no longer under the same umbrella? They are two separate entities. That's the thing that's going to be interesting to see going forward, is what exactly happens to Cartoon Network? What exactly happens to all of these different cable networks? What happens to these brands, given that they really aren't under the same umbrella anymore? Warner Brothers Pictures doesn't have to have any sort of allegiances or any sort of loyalty to the cable networks because they're not the same company anymore. The linear cable networks have to look after the linear cable networks. Warner Brothers Pictures has to look after Warner Brothers Pictures. Essentially what might happen is Warner Brothers Discovery's programming, their portfolio, might end up being just sold to the highest bidder, as we've seen already over the past few years with something like the new Amazing World of Gumball spinoff, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, going to Hulu. We've seen the same thing happen with Batman Cape Crusader going to Amazon Prime Video. It seems like what might end up happening going forward with Warner Brothers Discovery and their slate of programming is they might just start selling it to the highest bidder. If you want to get the next Ben 10, you better throw the most amount of money at us, because we're not just going to give it to you for free. We're not going to give it to Cartoon Network or Adult Swim just because we used to be under the same umbrella. If Netflix is going to pay us millions of dollars to get the rights to stream the next Ben 10, we're going to give it to Netflix. If the highest bidder ends up being Amazon Prime Video, they're going to get the rights to the next Ben 10. If it ends up being that Hulu swoops in and offers us a boatload of cash, we're going to give them the rights to the next Ben 10. It's going to be very curious to see what the relationship is between these two companies, because obviously the people within said companies know each other. Obviously there's going to be friends within the company. I'm sure David and Gunnar have a good relationship, or at least I would hope that they do. So we'll see how this all transpires. We'll see what happens going forward. But the big news today is that Warner Brothers Discovery is splitting into two separate companies, and that split is coming by the midpoint of next year, being 2026. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery has officially announced that they are splitting in half? Are you surprised by this news, or was this something you were expecting to happen even before the rumors started circulating about a month ago? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.